What we've talked about this hour is the slide into global war, and we started with the Jordanians, and we started with the setting of the hostage on fire yesterday, and I explained to you that it has nothing to do with the Quran, except they followed the Quran exactly on that execution. So it has everything to do with the Quran. We then went to the Jordanians, who the king has just quoted an American cowboy, Clint Eastwood, from Forgiven, saying, I'm going to shoot them, I'm going to shoot them, I'm going to kill their families, I'm going to kill their children, I'll burn their houses down, let's go get them. Meanwhile, while he is saying that, our president was meeting with Muslims to apologize and to also tell them that we are not going to take it out on Muslims. I don't know what world this man lives in, but I don't know anybody who wants to take it out on Muslims. We want to go get the bad guys. We can differentiate between good guys and bad guys. If you're trying to kill us, well, then we're going to kill you. If you're not trying to kill us, if you just want to live next door and you all want to get along, I'm totally cool with you. I don't know what world this president lives in. But we told you that this is going to, it fits all into the caliphate. I told you, Stu, could you do me a favor? Could you look up the earliest time that I said that the real target of ISIS is Jordan? And that, do you remember me saying this?
Yeah, I do. I can look it up. We'll see what we can find here.
Okay, so what I said was they were going to start in Iraq. They would move up to Syria, but the real target was Jordan, to destabilize Jordan and to get the king out of Jordan. And once you had Jordan, then the entire Middle East is in chaos. And then it's a clean sweep all the way to Israel. So this all fits into everything that I have said. The other part of that, as we just laid out, was communist, fascist, and anarchists would cobble together, and they would work together, even though they don't agree with each other, they would work together to destabilize the West and the Western world. That's now happening in Russia. And this is part of the Ukrainian thing, is they are using religion to go in and march against the Ukrainians, because they are going to, in their own words, we are going to be the third Roman Empire, and that America and the fall and the collapse, this is Putin, the collapse of the Soviet Union was the biggest tragedy of the last 100 years. Dugin is talking about resetting the third Roman Empire, so is Putin. And they are talking about using the Ukraine and Kiev as that launch pad to be able to destabilize the rest of Europe and to regain all of this territory. That brought us to Obama administration. Their new budget shows, from a guy who says he wanted to dismantle our nuclear armaments, to now in the White House's budget, he is increasing spending to update and improve our nuclear weapons capabilities. Now, the last piece of this, a speech given by the co-founder of the Rodina Party in Russia. He ran for president in 2004. He was a member of the State Duma until 2007. He has wide traction among the elites in Russia. And this is what he has just said, recently translated speech. He said, a sign of the upcoming collapse of the American central financial system is a crisis of U.S. national debt. Now, remember, our government is telling us that we are fine. Our government is telling us that we're going to be okay. The Russians are viewing us exactly the way we viewed the Soviet Union before their collapse. What had to happen for us to collapse? Remember, they were mired in a never-ending war in the Middle East, in Afghanistan. And they just could not get themselves out of that war, right? Osama bin Laden said when we got into Afghanistan, I will do to the Americans what I did to the Russian Empire. So two things happened to Russia to make it collapse. One, they went and they were mired in this war. They lost faith in really who they were. They lost faith in this great, Soviet empire. They were humbled. Then at the same time, the United States started pushing them and making them spend more money on their own defense. We saw their collapse coming. We knew they're not going to make it. They won't make it. And they didn't. So here they are. Think of Reagan saying this about us. They're now saying about them. They're now saying this about us. A sign of the upcoming collapse of the American financial system is a crisis of U.S. national debt. You can see this debt growing exponentially, and any mathematician who looks at this graph will say that the system has entered a critical phase and is in danger of self-destruction. He goes on to say more about the financial system, et cetera, but he says, so far there have not been any exceptions from the common cycles of accumulation. We are truly now on the verge of a global war. This is Russia. We are truly now on the verge of a global war. This tendency of a world war is determined by the deep dynamics of institutional technological shifts. Undoubtedly, the United States will wage the battle for leadership until, quoting, the last Ukrainian, as they say now. Not accidentally, they chose Ukraine as the tool of attacking Europe and Russia. Launching a world war is necessary now for the Americans in order to preserve their hegemony in the world through strengthening control over Europe by imposing the transatlantic free trade agreement, establishing control over Russia and the Middle East, thus expanding their competitive advantage in the battle for leadership with the Asian countries. This American war is doomed for defeat. Although Japan remains an occupied country, despite all the obstacles that Americans are trying to create in the Japanese-Chinese relationship, very quickly the Japanese capital is merging with the Chinese production system. We have to understand that these convulsions that we now see in Washington, from a point of view of global development, will not allow the Americans to hold on to their leadership, but will present a great danger for us in Russia, because they are starting a war in Europe against us. We are the main victim of this war today. There is no reason to believe that this war will stop in the next few years. But let's talk about Deflategate.
Okay. I think
so it's questionable whether... Yeah, the ball boy? You think it's the ball boy? I think honestly, it's probably, because we went into the bathroom. Why are you going to the bathroom with 2 bags of balls for 98 seconds? I mean, it makes no sense at all. I mean, that's a great point, Glenn. Thanks for bringing it up.
You're welcome.
It's unbelievable what is, we need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night.
Are you now quoting a Bonnie Tyler song?
But he's got to be strong.
All right.
He's got to be fast.
Okay.
And he's got to be fresh from the fight.
I got it.
For me.
I got it.
I mean, that's Tom Brady. That's Tom Brady. There was no Deflategate at the Super Bowl.
So I think I just laid out, in 40 minutes, a very compelling case.
You did.
And we're going to Bonnie Tyler song.
That's why we need a hero.
No,
and
I can take
out for one till the end of the night.
I could take the other side of this, Glenn, if you want. I mean, Glenn, Pat's obviously skirting around. What I would say is we don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond Thunderdome. And I think that really lays it out.
Have you thought about that, Glenn? You haven't thought about that. You wouldn't be so worried if you think about these things.
You know what?
I mean, where do you go with that? It does sound like World War III is on the way. It does. So where do you...
Well, where I'd like to go is somebody talk me off of this cliff. Somebody tell me that you're misreading this. Somebody show me where I've got this wrong.
I can't. That's why we need a hero. And I'm holding out for one until the end of the night. But he's got to be strong.
So why is no one reporting on any of this? I sat in a meeting yesterday with people who absolutely should know about Russia.
Mm.
You know, right?
Mm. Oh, yeah.
You know who I met with yesterday? I met with a group yesterday that should be all over this. And it was a confidential meeting, so I can't tell you who it was with, but they should be all over this. And they looked at me with glassy eyes and said, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, they're worried about the wrong things.
What am I talking about?
Yeah.
You don't know? What am I talking about? Here, this is what I'm talking about.
It's amazing how many people don't pay any attention to what's going on.
Because the mainstream media is too worried about Deflategate, and our own government is lying to us. They have lured us into a poppy field. How many people know why they set the guy on fire yesterday? Nobody. I didn't know. I have to go to a newspaper in Pakistan to be able to find out why they set the guy on fire.
And why they put the fire out the way they did, which
Right.
was really weird, because they did it with masonry. They did it with bricks and rocks, and they did that.
So why would they do that?
Yeah.
How many people know that? How many people
I
understand?
didn't know until you said it this morning.
Right. How many people understand what ISIS and ISIL, what a caliphate really means? They dismissed it. Then they heralded it and say, oh, wow, look, surprise, surprise, a caliphate is here. But nobody is talking about what the caliphate really is trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is explaining why it's important that they hit Jordan. Nobody understands what that war might mean. Nobody understands what this new king might do in Saudi Arabia. Nobody is paying attention to OPEC, the financial minister, saying oil has now hit its bottom. Now that they've disrupted everything here in the United States, now that we have the brink of disaster for our own oil industry, and they brought it down as low as they can, and they're going to keep it as low as they can, now the finance minister is saying, beware, because of the events of the world, it could rocket back to $200 a barrel. $200 a barrel. That's $10 a gallon gasoline. That shuts the entire world. We collapsed at 140. Nobody is paying attention. Pat, tell me how we're doing on finances right now. Tell me, compared to 2008, how are we holding up?
Worse. There's a story today that the world is awash in more debt than we were back in 2007 and 08 when we had the financial collapse. So countries like Ireland, which you never hear of, is 172% of their GDP in debt. So they have their debt is 172% of their GDP right now. That's higher than Greece, which is only 103% of GDP. You rarely hear about Ireland's situation. Portugal, China is at 83%. China, they're supposed to be, the economic whirlwind of the planet, and growing at 9 or 10% a year. They're 83%. Their debt is 83% of their GDP.
So now why do we have this debt? We have this debt because the United States went off the gold standard because we said we want a new society. We want to be able to build these cities. We want to be able to have all these cars and have everything that we ever want and dream. There's no way that anyone could afford the structure that we have built. It's impossible. There's not enough gold in the world to be able to buy all the things that we have. So we made this deal that we would never let it get out of control, but we needed to loosen things up because we wanted to build the future. We wanted to build this grand, what we live in. And what we have is great. It is really great. We've done some amazing things, but we violated first principles. We violated common sense. You cannot have this much debt. And the entire world is there. So what that means is if there is a reset, you do not come back to this. What we have is gone. What the world has is gone, because it's not like you go bankrupt and then you go back to this lifestyle. There's no way to afford this lifestyle. And I mean the world's lifestyle. So there is this real possibility that you are living in the golden age of man, and that our children and our grandchildren may not ever believe it was ever like this. Now, I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live with that kind of a thinking. I believe that technology and common sense and God will steer us through this. But there is a massive change coming, massive change, and we need to prepare for it.